Okay, everybody. I've been asked to do some more videos dealing with some of the details of how to put one of these gourd banjos together. So let's jump into just some basics here. I've gone over some of this before, but let's just keep the discussion going. So here's the one I imagine y'all have all seen. This is the most recent one that I made. You can see it's basically the neck goes in all the way through. You have either the neck is either reduced at this point into a dowel shape, or what I do the cheating way is I tap a dowel in here, and I always drill my hole. I try to. So far, I always have right here where the flower came out of the gourd when this was a vegetable. And on the earliest gourd banjos, the old ones that we have, this is pretty much what they were doing. And the neck goes down through the stem of the vegetable. And I presume, I don't know how, the way that I do it is I sink a pin, 2 or 3 pins, always, sometimes I've just done 1 pin on some of them. If I felt like it was really secure, and I tap a hardwood wedge in here with some glue, drill a hole, and I sink a hardwood peg in here. But on this one I did 3, so you'll see there's 1 here, 1 there that's securing this wedge in, and then a 3rd. These just sink into the neck to hold that in place. Okay, so get the basics of that going. Let's see, what I've got here, this is just a neck I clamped up to show y'all. This is the new neck that's going to be basically the same. It's a 4-string banjo. What's going to happen here, I'm going to just take a piece of dowel, just like I did on this other banjo. I'm going to take a piece of dowel and sink it in somewhere in this heel. So I'll have, basically my neck will now look like this. That's going to go into this banjo, this new gourd I've made. That's going to fit in here. I'm going to align it, hopefully, so that the dowel protrudes out there, traditionally where they would have sunk their dowel. And then I'm going to wedge this, I'm going to put a wedge in here. I'm going to wedge that and get it exactly how I want it. And then I'm going to pin it on the sides and back. That's after I mount my head. So some other things, this is probably the most challenging part about making the gourd banjo, is getting, I think, these 2 cuts. If you already have made banjos, you never made a gourd banjo, to me this was the most challenging part, getting this cut and this cut. I didn't know how to do it, how to approach it. I want to say, I think it was Pete Ross, when I spoke with him at the Banjo Gathering in 2018 in Bristol, Tennessee, Virginia. And I think it was Pete Ross that told me that the first cut you always make is cut your sound table cut, where the hide is going to lay. You cut this first and get it as straight, flat as you want, as possible. And I'll give you the advice too, get it as far down on the collar if you're making a gourd like this. What kills you on these is the rise right there. That kills the action. So if you cut it up here and put a little hide on it, your action is extremely steep. So the closer you get your cut to this collar, remove as much of this rise as you can and get it straight and flat as you can. That's important. The way I do it, I just used my grandfather's back saw, old-timey back saw. I line out the line as close as I can. I try to get it straight, and I hold it down and just slowly eyeball it back and forth until this comes off and I got that, right? So so what Pete Ross told me, it's important to do that part first, because then making this cut is easy. Then you take your flat surface, boom. And I think people like him and Jeff Menzies, these guys that have more machinery, they have a belt sander or something, and they'll run this sucker on a belt sander until this is perfectly flat. So I don't have that, neither do the original makers. So mine are as flat as I can get them. But anyhow, I'm getting off subject. You plant this sucker down. Now all you need to do, take your back saw hold this down and mark out where you're going to, exactly where you want that neck cut off. And you wind up with that. Looks good, right? So, boom, this is all going to work. This banjo, with any luck, this new banjo will be as good, maybe even play even better than this banjo. This has been probably the best gourd banjo I've made yet. So that's neat. One more thing I'll tell you. Don't be deterred. You see there's all kinds of bug boring holes in this gourd. Some of them were rather deep, but this is a good strong gourd, so I'm not too worried about it. Don't be deterred if you see a lot of bug holes in your gourd. Go over. All you need is some cheap wood glue, and you need a damp cloth of some kind. I've got, here's my damp cloth I was using. So it's not a wet cloth. Soak it and then wring it out until it's just damp, all right? Take your wood glue and just fill each glue hole, and then I'll use my hand because I'm dirty, and just sort of get it wiped off mostly. But then take your damp rag, most important part, and clean off all that excess glue that you couldn't wipe off with your hand and so forth. That will leave behind just the glue inside the little pock marks. Now, one pass is not going to be enough. You're going to have to do several passes of glue and damp rag. It won't hurt if you have some sawdust laying around. Sprinkle that in each time too. Okay, once you get that built up like I'm doing here, then a traditional sealing for a gourd, usually on a musical instrument, we're doing like I'm doing a hand rubbed oil finish, just flax oil. I've done hemp oil, and then beeswax. And buff that in and polish it as best I can. I've done that on my gourd banjos in the past, but I remember I had a good friend who made all kinds of things out of gourd. He made gourd canteens mostly for like historical reenacting. And traditionally with the gourd canteen, they would beeswax the interior to waterproof it, but they would shellac the exterior. They also did that with straw hats too. In the 1817 and 1800s, it was very common. The straw hats were almost always shellacked when they made it. Makes it last longer. Same thing with a gourd dipper, a gourd canteen, and I'm presuming a gourd banjo, if they had access to shellac, then they would have that's a traditional sealing for that. So this is about 2 coats of amber shellac. Now, it's not vegan. It's made from a bunch of crushed up insects and chemicals and stuff, I'm sure, but I mean, it gives you that traditional finish, so I figure I'll send a little bit. And amber is what I like best. Everybody else likes amber the best too, because when you go to the hardware store, often you can only find clear shellac, because everybody will have bought up the amber, but the amber is a little bit nicer. So this is about 2 coats. I'm going to put at least 1 more coat of shellac on this. Every time you shellac it, you let it dry, and you buff it with a little bit of real fine sandpaper, and then shellac it again. And you keep doing that and build up a coat. Okay, I've droned on long enough. I just wanted to show you all some of that. Keep throwing some more suggestions at me, more ideas. If you want me to cover anything else, let me know. And yeah, thanks for looking. You'll see me later.